Welcome two-time RBC Canadian Open champion Jim Furyk. Jim, welcome back. First title was in '06 here at Hamilton. Maybe get us started by talking about thoughts on coming back to the site of your first win and what you saw out there today.
Well, obviously it's nice to come back. I told y'all how much I liked the golf course back in '06. Not much has changed really. They've added a little bit of yardage to number one, maybe 10 yards, and some fairway bunkers on 7, but the rest of the golf course looks very similar. You get good feelings coming back. You remember some good shots, and the golf course is a little softer this year. I know supposedly this area has been in a big drought all summer, but outside the periphery here, you can see some maybe browning in the rough outside of play, but inside the ropes, the golf course is very green, so they must have been irrigating it quite a bit, and then the rain on Sunday left the golf course very soft for Monday's round when I played early in the Pro-Am. It's firmed up a little since, but it's firmed up quite a bit since, but still somewhat receptive, and I'll be interested to see what happens with the weather the rest of the week. I think it'll have a direct effect on scoring.
Okay, so open up to questions. We'll raise your hand. I'll pass you a mic.
Look out.
Okay.
Jim, just on the golf course, you're saying how soft it was. Can you compare? I know it's early in the week, but can you compare the setup as far as the rough goes to last year at Shaughnessy?
Well, last year Shaughnessy was extremely damp. And you had dew. It felt like you had dew in the fairways and in the rough till about noon there. It didn't seem really to ever burn off. Made the rough very lush, very thick, very deep, and very penal. So this is you can get in some spots here where it's difficult, but that was far more penal rough than what we're seeing this week.
Sneds was in here yesterday and he talked about last week at Lytham regarding specifically the bunkers. He called them the most penal bunkering that he has ever experienced. Would you subscribe to that, or is there something else you can even compare it to?
I think from a bunker itself, I don't think the bunkers at Lytham are really all that penal as far as the depth and the shape and the size.
I think he's talking more about the moisture in them too, Jim. Probably. Just the situation, I think.
I would totally disagree with that. I think what he was probably trying to say was probably more in the setup of the golf course, in the layout of the golf course. At a lot of Open Championships, you can try to take bunkers out of play. They're out there at 280 yards. You make sure you don't hit it past 260 and you stay short of them. Here at Lytham, they're staggered a lot. So you always have to challenge one side, if that makes sense. When I think of, when you go back to like Liverpool, remember Tiger? The bunkers kind of went this way in a lot of holes where they started out wide, short, and narrowed in tight. So you could try to challenge the bunkers and hit a longer club, but it made no sense. Tiger played iron off almost every tee there, played it back into a fat part of the fairway where he didn't have to challenge the bunkers and played from there. It was a smart play. At Lytham, the way they're staggered, you're always challenging one side. You have to, it forces you to. So I think from an architectural standpoint, I think that's some of the most penal bunkers. But just from being able to get out of them, I think St. Andrews and some places are far worse, where you have guys that can't get out of bunkers.
Just to follow and switching gears, of following your career as closely as I have over the years, I mean the movement of in and out with putters for you is something you do quite a lot. I mean, you'll switch them out and in. What goes into the thought press when Jim Furyk moves from one putter to another? Do you get bored with them, or do they misbehave, or what's behind it?
I'll go for a year or two at a time without switching, and then when I start, I'll switch quite often until I feel comfortable, till I like what I see. And usually it's I'm not afraid to switch putters, as you know. I've had the same one in the bag now since October of last year, without fail. I've had that same one in every round I've played since then. Since the President's Cup, was that October or November? I don't know, one of those months. I've had the same putter in the bag, but for me it's getting comfortable with my alignment. first and foremost. I always feel like if I know where I'm setting up and I really get comfortable with, all right, I think this is a right edge putt, and I've got my putter set up right edge, I feel like I can make a lot of putts. But sometimes I feel like you get used to a certain putter and the way it looks, and my bad habit used to be I aimed left on my putts. Recent years it's been kind of aiming right, but I think when we, as tour pros, as much as we practice, as good as we are at hand-eye coordination, I feel like when we get going bat with a putter, the first thing I always look at is my alignment, and if I don't feel it's good, I'll try to make a switch to get comfortable with where I'm going.
I think I know the answer to this, Jim, but would you ever consider a long putter?
I putted with a belly for a couple months last year. I was at the Canadian Open last year. No, right after the Canadian Open last year. I put a belly in at Firestone and used it through the playoffs. And I think even maybe at Sea Island, and then over in China. And when I came back from China, I think I decided to go back to the short putter for the President's Cup. I've stuck with it since.
Any particular reason?
I wasn't happy at all with my putting last year. I had a very poor year putting. I didn't drive the ball very well last year and putt the ball very well last year, and it's two of the three most important parts of the game. So it was to try to get a little more confidence on the greens and try to hold some more putts.
And why give up on the belly?
Why give up?
Yeah, on the belly itself, yeah.
I saw myself making some of the same mistakes and hitting some of the same poor putts I was with the shorter putter. I had success with the short putter in my career. I've been a good putter. Early in my career, I led the putting stats one year, so I knew it was there. I had to maybe figure out how to go back to basics and get back to putting more solid.
Obviously, you're hearing the controversy going on about the belly putters these days with 3 of the last 4 majors.
I know the USGA and the R&A have already been real serious about the possibility of banning them. And
Your thoughts on that, Jim? What do you think?
I don't really understand why. I feel like it's a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction. I feel like they allowed it for 30 years.
That's what I said, yeah.
What all of a sudden you've got Keegan at the PGA, you got Webb at the U.S. Open, you got Ernie at but it was before that. I didn't hear much about it until after the U.S. Open, and then it was brought to my attention as a board member of the PGA Tour that they were seriously considering it. And if they did, we started talking about we'd have to think about possibly what the tour would do in that case. Would we follow suit or not? And none of those discussions we haven't had any of those discussions, but it was just something brought up. I disagree, even more from a PGA Tour perspective, but from an average everyday player. I've got a lot of friends that don't putt very well at our local club that shoot 80 to 85. They enjoy the game of golf. They putt with a belly putter or a long putter. It helps them get around. And to take that away, I think takes away from the enjoyment of golf. And with what we've got going on with people leaving the game, with less and less people playing, I think the golf industry's maybe coming around a little bit out of what we've seen economically, but still not as strong as we need it to be. And a lot of that's having fun and enjoying yourself. And I think we're doing a lot of things with the rules and with golf course design that aren't making the game as fun as it could be.
So basically, are you talking bifurcation in all clubs?
I really don't understand why bifurcation couldn't work, but I may be very short. That one I'll be more reserved about. I'm sure someone could give me a good idea why. I just haven't heard it yet, if that makes sense. I honestly think that you should play from a different set of rules than I should. I have no problem with that.
Jim, right in the middle here. Having won in Canada twice, does the Canadian Open have extra meaning for you? And are you surprised that more of the top names in the game don't make the commitment to play here?
No, it definitely has a special place for me. It's a national open. It has a rich history and tradition. I think it's the third oldest or fourth oldest, third oldest national open in the world. I think Argentina's the fourth, or Australian's the fourth, one of those. And then Australia's 5, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So yeah, if I could just get a British Open, it'd be great, because I got an Argentina, a Canadian, and a U.S., but I can't get the oldest one. So, but Yeah, it means a lot to me. I think that RBC's done a great job. We sat in meetings as players years ago, back at Angus Glen in '07, trying to woo a sponsor, trying to figure out how to restore this tournament back to its glory days. And it started, one, with we need to secure a sponsor from a financial aspect, and two, I think it was a good idea to start moving this golf tournament around to some of the better golf courses in the country. And you see it going to Shaughnessy and Royal Montreal and Hamilton and St. George, and you've got some great golf courses in this country. A national open should move around. Now the one negative probably is it's a difficult date. You're sitting in the middle of two major championships and a World Golf Championship, so the best players in the world have to play those 3 events. And if they're to play this event, it's going to be 4 in a row. And some players don't like to do that. So that's your difficult spot. Here.
Jim, over here. Beyond the date, is there anything else, do you think, that could get some of the top players to come here? I mean, short of switching dates or anything like that? I mean, I know it helps to have it move around or anything like that, but any thoughts on that? In terms of getting more of the bigger names to come to this Open?
I think that getting the best players and getting strong fields is a very simple format, in my opinion. You can throw all the player and family parties, and you can do all the hospitality that you want. But if you have a very good golf course and a big purse, usually the best players show up. That's short of a date, if that makes sense. But Wachovia was given a very good date, or it's Wells Fargo now, was given a very good date in May, right before the Players' Championship. But great golf course, biggest purse. They get a great field every year. They're mad that they didn't get Bubba and someone else this year, and I started laughing. I go, this is kind of the have or have nots. I mean, this is an event that, well, Bubba's not here and such isn't here. I said, you know how many tournaments would kill to say those are the only 2 guys that aren't there? You have a wonderful field. So, and they kind of laughed and said, yeah, I guess you're right, when you think of it that way. So, but I'm not one that really ever gets, to me, it's always been about the golf course and strength of field. But strength of field is driven by golf courses first and foremost. If I like the golf course, I'm going to play. I don't care who's showing up or what the purse is. And but those are the things that drive players to play golf tournaments.
Just a few more. We got up here, and then we'll go back there. Right here. He's passing.
You mentioned the golf course. What is it specifically about this golf course that you like so much?
Well, it's not mindless, one. You've got to work the ball around it. Even a guy like me who's not all that long, I'm not going to hit a lot of drivers, but it's about working the golf ball and putting it in certain spots of the fairway. The greens are very severe, usually from back to front. Got to keep the ball under the pin to be able to score. You just have to, I think, hit and create a lot of shots out here. But it reminds me of, I grew up in the northeast part, in Pennsylvania. Grew up in the northeast part of the United States. I played on old golf courses. I saw on someone's hat today, this was built in 1894. I played on golf courses that were built in the 1920s and 1930s a lot. And I just enjoy that era and that style of architecture. That's where I'm comfortable, and it makes sense to me.
So even though you talked earlier about it being receptive so far, and of course we may get some rain overnight tonight, it's still not a golf course that anyone's gonna walk away with a big score here this week. It's gonna be
walk away with a.
No one's gonna run away and hide here. You don't think it's?
You can't ever. I don't think you can ever pick that out if someone's going to run away from the field. I think that the scores that we shoot are a lot more reflective of the setup of a golf course than they are of the difficulty of a golf course. You can pick. You can go pick out a very difficult layout, but if you put no rough out there and make the greens somewhat receptive and you put the pins in easy spots, the best players in the world are going to find a way to shoot 64. It just happens. And you can go to a golf course that maybe isn't nearly as tough from an architectural standpoint, but if you narrow the fairways out, grow the rough high, bake out the greens, make them firm and fast, and hide the pins, well, you just can't shoot as good a score. So our scores are reflective of the setup. Now, if we can keep this place pretty dry, it keeps firming up, the greens get a little faster, then scoring will be more difficult. But if we get the rain you're talking about and the golf course stays soft, someone's going to fire a good number around here.
Jim, when you look at the struggles that Mike Weir has gone through, what goes through your mind when you see something like that? I know it's been injury related, but what goes through your mind when you see the struggles that he has right now?
Well, Mike's a friend, so I guess, you know, I care about how he's doing and wish him well. And I guess first and foremost, you just, you know, he's a good friend. He's really well liked on tour. He's a great guy. I can't imagine someone saying a bad word about him. I'd be worried about that guy rather than anyone else. So I think everyone would like to see him, you know, come out of it and start playing well. And guys have done that in the past. I mean, you look at a guy like Lee Westwood, who was on the bottom for a while and came back to be #1 in the world. You had Steve Stricker, who was off the tour for a while and has come back to play very well into his mid-40s. So guys have done it, and for one reason or another, injury or whatever it may be, I'm not sure what those reasons are, but you know, he carries a lot of pressure on him. You know, he's carried the flag up here for years and years and years, and probably carries a little bit more pressure than the rest of us do. You know, you know, I might carry a state of Pennsylvania at home, and we still have Sean O'Hare in Pennsylvania, and we'll never match Arnold Palmer. You know, you could take Sean and I, add us up, and multiply times 1,000. We're still never going to be Arnold Palmer. So, you know, but Mike for 10 years, for a decade, was the face of Canadian golf, and wherever he went, I heard it, saw it at the President's Cup. You know, there's a lot of pressure on him as well. So, and then I went to the grocery store yesterday, and a guy wished me well in the tournament, and then the very next sentence was, "But I think this is the event Mike Weir pulls out of it and wins." And I said, "Man, I'll be honest with you. I hope you're right. I think it would be great, and it'd be a great story." So, you know, I wish him well, and I know how hard a worker he is, and I believe he'll play better and start playing well again.
Hey Jim, right here. To follow up on what you were talking about with the long putter, if the USGA and the R&A decide to outlaw the long or anchored putter or whatever, is it out of the realm of possibility, since you're involved in PGA Tour government, that the tour would allow it anyway?
That's something we'd have to talk about. Is it out of the realm? I love the careful choice of your words so you could pin me down. It's something that we'll have to discuss as the tour. I guess it's happened before in the fact that in the rule with Karsten and the Grooves and the USGA, the tour has gone opposite of what the USGA has done, or done something different from the USGA. So it wouldn't be the first time, but you know, I would be out of line speaking really about what we would do as a board, as an individual, when we really haven't talked about it. It was mentioned to us, it was brought up that they were, you know, they've been talking about it for years, but it was brought to our attention that, you know, hey, I think this time they're serious. Was, you know, to put it in simple terms. If that's the case, we would need to talk as a tour what we would do. That's all the farther we've gotten.
I want to ask you another question too. We saw what happened with Adam at Royal Lytham. You've been in this.
I didn't see it. Unfortunately, I was on the bus, and so I heard some of it on the radio, but it was breaking in and out. I know he bogeyed the last 4. I'm not exactly sure how he did it, other than he 3-putted. I kind of figured out 16, 17, 18 a little bit, but go ahead.
Yeah,
didn't see it.
You've been in situations and had leads, especially major championships. Can you just speak of the mentality, the hurdles, the demons maybe that you may have rattling around while you're trying to win that event?
I think in any event you have a lead, especially when it's, you know, when it's a 1-shot lead or a 2-shot lead, it's easy to stay aggressive. When you get a 4-shot lead, and I only had one opportunity to actually ever get a big lead like that, and it was at the U.S. Open when I won. I had a 4-shot lead on the back 9, for most of the back 9 really. I won 3 or 4 for most of the back 9. It is a struggle then. It's like anything else. If you have a 25-foot putt straight up a hill on any day, it's a, you know, you're trying to knock the putt in, and it's kind of given that you're going to 2-putt it in the back of your head. If I give you the same putt to win a tournament or to win a hole in match play, it becomes difficult, and it's more of a mental game that you play with yourself. When that's all you have to do, and it's right there in front of you and easy, it's like a tennis player that has a lob up there, and all he has to do is spike it over the net, and he drills into the net or hits it long. I mean, he's hit that shot 100 times, 100,000 times in his life and missed one, and there it was. So, when you're just trying to get in, it's harder, and you kind of have to play tricks with your mind. I think what I've always tried to do in that situation is I'll make a conservative play. Let's say I'm in a match play hole and the guy that I'm playing against, I know he's going to make bogey or worse, and I'm sitting in the middle of the fairway. Well, I try to take a conservative line for my second shot, but I try to make an aggressive swing to that line. And when you start trying to make a conservative swing, stuff goes bad, if that makes sense. We've all made the same mistake he did. We've all blown a lead. We've all had our opportunities, and it's not the best feeling in the world. But, and then when you watch, you go, well, how in the hell can you do that? But you know what? Any of us that have been in that situation, we understand it can happen. How do you gain perspective afterwards? It's real simple. You don't have a choice. What's that? Yeah. You don't have a choice. You can fade away or go away, or you can get pissed off and work harder and try to come back stronger. I've never really looked at it as I had a veteran player walk up to me one year. I four-putted a hole in Hawaii. I ended up losing that on 15. I birdied 16, bogeyed 17, birdied 18, got in a playoff, played good in the playoff, I lost. And a guy walked up to me. A month later, I played good in a couple of events, and he said, I'm really proud of you for hanging in after Hawaii. He goes, well, that would ruin some guy's career. And I had, honestly, to that point, I had no idea what he was talking about. I looked at him like, yeah, I was upset. I'll tell you, I cried that night. I was a young player. I cried that night, but, it's golf. My parents still love me. My girlfriend was with me. Everything was, I was going to live. So you look at it perspective. For me, that stuff's always made me mad. I don't really have a choice because I want to be successful, and you move on, and you're better because of it. That's it. No options.
Thank you, Jim.
Yep.